Call our goal setting meeting for August 8th in order. First up is introductions. We'll start in the room here. I'm Pat Malone, Commissioner.
Zan Oshiro, Commissioner.
Nancy Wise, Commissioner.
April Holland, Interim Health Department Director.
Corey Grogan, Public Information.
Sarah Siddiqui, Equity Diversity Coordinator.
Suzanne Hoffman, Interim County Administrator.
Lauren Wojtowski, Meeting Reporter.
Joining us online.
Amanda Makepeace, Administrative Specialist.
Are there any announcements this morning? Hearing none. Review and approve our agenda. Additions or corrections? Hearing none. Consider the agenda approved. Item number 3, approve meeting minutes from June 13th, goal setting, and June 27th, the joint meeting with the Albany City Council.
I move approval of the June 13th, 2023 goal setting meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 And I move approval of the June 27th, 2023 joint meeting minutes with the Albany Council.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. 4.1, strategic communication update. Corey Grogan.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, commissioners and everyone. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to go first this morning. So my plan this morning is to kind of try to run through my presentation fairly quickly because I'd like to show you all the biennium report. And hopefully by the end of the day today, we can send that to print and be ready to release it. And it looks like a good product, so I hope you all like it. But I'd also like to give you one more opportunity to look it over one last time today if you'd like to do that. So first page on my update is I wanted to let you all know that we came out with episode 4 of the Benton Public Podcast, which featured environmental health and water quality with Scott Kruger from our environmental health program. So if you'd like to give that a listen, please do. We're going to work to continue to keep socializing that product and be consistent with it and hopefully get viewership, and some of that should come organically based on the topic if we're doing things the right way, and socializing this product will be one of our focuses. Yes.
I was wondering, are we able to capture any data on how many people listen to the podcast?
We can, and it's a little bit trickier though because we're posting it in a couple places, and then we post it on our social media too. However, yes, and we will do that. I think I'd like to try that after our next podcast. We have one coming up that I think is going to be pretty interesting, and so I'd like to see what the outcome of that one is, and so we'll put that on our tracker to do that. Thank you. I wanted to bring up JSIP feedback collection. So we've moved on to the next step, and Brenda's been working hard with that, but the survey is going out. We're going to do a couple pushes through all of our channels. As you know, we've already collected a lot of great feedback, and we want to make sure we're listening to the community. So this is another opportunity for us to do that as we progress through this feedback collection process. And we'll have that opportunity both in English and Spanish. I did want to bring up the Historic Courthouse Advisory Committee because we're a little bit behind on our messaging for that. However, I wanted to let you all know that I met with Tommy and Chris about that. And, you know, part of the reason is that Tommy is new and we want to get past the fair. We really want her to be able to provide leadership and guidance in this process. And we just want to make sure that we're clear and consistent with how we're messaging that. So we'll definitely be pushing that information out soon. Okay. Advertising, considerable advertising push with the Benton County Fair. We did well with our paid advertising. We also got quite a bit of earned media, which I was happy with, and that's in addition to sharing on all of our channels. I won't play this one today. I think the ad is embedded in here if you want to look at the KEZI ad for the fair. And then we're doing some wildfire awareness ads as well with our standard. We do Alsea Valley Voice, Philomath News, Corvallis Advocate, and KORC Radio. And so we've updated the ads in those to wildfire messaging. That's obviously going to be important this time of year, and especially in our new normal. And we're very dry again here this summer. Benton County Fair, I mentioned that. Lots of community outreach. If you want to look at some of those products, there's a link. And our display, I think, went really well this year. We kind of upgraded it. We had a couple TVs and showed some of our videos, and the community seemed to really enjoy it. And our photo booth is always popular. And of course, our giveaways, people and the children, they really enjoy the free giveaways and that are associated with the games. So thank you for everyone who volunteered, and a couple of you are in this room, so I greatly appreciate that. Corvallis Fall Festival, we'll be focusing our attention to that for our next event. And they're doing some new sponsorship stuff this year. So I've been working with Danelle, who organizes the Fall Festival. We'll be one of their sponsors and have a main stage banner. They're going to have a music and a dance that's a little bit different than what they've done in the past. And that's in addition to our vendor space. And Fall Festival, for whatever reason, is a good opportunity to get folks signed up for our listserv. Last year, we gave away T-shirts and really focused in on that. And so I want to do that again, because I think we had approximately 250 sign up for our listserv at the Fall Festival last year. So I'd like to see if we can make that happen again. These are some of our things that we'll get with our sponsorship at the Fall Festival. Some of the external communications and social media that we've been focused on, we've had several road closures. And so we work with Public Works to make sure that we're getting that out appropriately through our channels and Nextdoor and on flash alerts, so media partners can share it if they'd like to. Obviously the podcast, we did some outreach for that. And the Benton County Fair we did a lot of outreach for that, and shared a variety of things, including photos that we collected. We got some great photos this year. The county administrator hiring outreach has been a big priority. Hazardous waste disposal, wildfire grant, cooling centers, and that will be a focus here in the coming days as well, I'm sure, with the temperatures getting hotter. And we did some outreach on water resources as well. Here's an example of one of the products that we put out about our new county administrator, Rachel. And I provided a link to our product tracker if you would like to look at that, and it shows products that we've been putting out through the last year, whether that's feature stories, photos, videos, advertising, earned media. We've been working on some publications. The big one, obviously, is the Biennium Report. We're doing a historical driving tour publication with our community development department. That's in the works. We may pivot a little bit on how that looks, but it's going to be a really neat publication. I think it can be a crown jewel of our inventory, because it's going to give folks an opportunity to learn about Benton County's history, and then give them some guidance to be able to go out and see these things. And as I understand it, that's part of our mission in the community development department, is to share about Benton County's history. We've also updated our flood publication to have a Spanish version of that. And then we're working on publication for riparian resources in addition to the Biennium Report. Also, we had a great plain language training for the directors in the web team with Tom Fuller, the former communications director of ODOT and worked in media for a long time. He does an excellent job presenting it. And so that will be consistent training. It supports our website communications to, provide a system where folks can present clear and concise information that's mandatory for us to provide both at the state and federal level. But it helps. It's a way that we can train, and and the plan is to have workshops so we can learn what plain language is, and we can actually practice it. And it helps us with our communication and writing on the website, but it also helps us with our communication across the board too. So we want to be able to provide opportunities for that type of training for the departments, not just for the website, but in other cases as well. Communication planning is ongoing. We continue to keep up with our editorial calendar and our project list. Media relations and strategic communications policy updates, that's finally going to get approved. Been working on the strategic communications plan, which right now includes internal communications and our outreach plan. But in addition to that, after the media relations and strategic communications policy is updated, I'd like to add a media relations part to the overall strategic communication plan, which when finished will be comprehensive. And so at some point, I'd like to find out how we're going to tackle the crisis communication plan. That'll be a bigger, larger effort. And of course, we'll need to coordinate with the sheriff's office and emergency management on that. But and also our key partners, stakeholders type communication plan would be a part of that. I do have an update on the Calapooya branding. It has taken longer than we would like, but it is in the works and we will finally have it done. We've signed the paperwork and the company Forest Signs is working with our facilities to get that installed. And I want to say it was early October is the target date to get a nice Benton County logo and at your service every day in here. In the admin area, and also a backlit, really nice logo out in front of the building. So I think it's going to look really, really sharp. I'm excited about it. Wanted to give an update on the website project. We've been working closely with IT, who will be doing a lot of the back end technical stuff, but of course we'll be supporting. And we have hired, or we're in the process of working to hire a web specialist. And we have interviews. We're working on scheduling interviews for that next week. I was happy to see that we had some very highly qualified candidates with some super skills. And so we're doing a number of interviews and I'm confident that we'll get somebody good into that position. But that will really, really help ensure that our website is up to standard and above standard, having that person who is basically has 3 buckets, which is oversight, support, and training. And so that'll be a huge resource for the county. IT has been working on web beta training for the departments. So those trainings are half-day or day-long training where each department, their web liaisons will learn about WordPress, equity, diversity, and inclusion. I know Sarah participates in that. Plain language and best practices for posting, gathering photos, and then IT is also doing some drop-in sessions for folks who are wanting to learn more about the website project and how to use WordPress in the website. And that is all I have. Are there any questions before I move on to a preview of the biennium report?
And just a comment, appreciate the creative efforts that you seem to come up with. You're aware creativity is essential. We can't have a local TV station or one major radio station newspaper, and so have to figure out how to get the word out. Like the podcast, no guarantees, but that seems to be worthwhile effort so far. And like Suzanne, I'm being interested in what kind of general idea what kind of following those have garnered so far. Like any new product, it takes a while to people figure out that it exists. appreciate these updates, keeping us posted on what you're up to.
I appreciate that feedback a lot. I enjoy doing this type of work, and I agree with what you're saying. I think there's so many different ways that people get information these days. We need to continually be able to evaluate and adjust and try different things to meet people where they're at. So we'll continue to do that.
We just had a series of interviews for advisory boards, commissions, and one of the important questions is, well, how did you hear about this opportunity? Seems like the social media tracks to social media, but that was what the theme seemed to be, and that's different than in the past and putting something in the newspaper and getting a response.
Yeah, and even social media is just changing so much and so fast, and they're changing the way they do their algorithms. So you just constantly have to try to keep up with everything and be willing to evaluate and adjust as needed. So
Try out new things. Guarantees. See what works.
yeah.
What used to work might drop off. Add something, and having a connection with KEZI, it seems like has served as well.
Yeah, it has, absolutely. We have a lot of great relationships with our local media partners, so I do appreciate that. KVAL and all of our smaller Philomath and LC and Corvallis Gazette Times and all of our local media partners have, especially the fair was a good example of that. We had a lot of earned media and sharing that with folks, and it's really nice to see because that's an important community event and a bonding event for the community. So it's great to get the information out there.
And speaking of Paloma, Brad, I think that's an in-depth article just came out. There's escape Christmas trees as part of the school, high school complex, and the cross-country team has used that as part of their cross-country route.
Oh.
Last week, the trees got cut down.
Oh.
And Brad did a in-depth story on the history and what happened. Cross-country coaches wondering, they have a big meet, I think, in October. Wondering where they're going to have their meet this year.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty historic cross-country meet too, if I remember correctly. It's been going on for many years. Well, Brad's a good example of a great partner though too, and the program that he has is, it's not a traditional media source, but the community in Philomath really relies on him. They want to hear about things that are going on locally there in sports and things like that. And so I'm always impressed when Brad sends us analytics, which he does, at how good of a following he has there locally. And he's been a good partner to us as well.
Well, and I think Brad's building up this fall.
Yeah.
It was pretty lean there for a year or two. Local businesses and people are starting to figure out that he does a good job and needs our support.
Yep. Andy, I appreciate the feedback. So we'll move on to the biennium report. This is the cover page. We have a letter from the commissioners with signatures at the bottom. We streamlined that a bit to get everything on there with a message from you all, and feel free to look at that one more time if you would like. Won't move forward with anything until after today and tomorrow morning. Really appreciate Rick and his team for gathering information about the budget, because of course that's a super important part of this publication. And so we have these nice visual aids and graphics, and then you can, a little feature about our credit upgrade that the county received through Moody's program. Then it talks about major elements of the budget. There's a little feature about you all, the commissioners in Benton County, and how you lead the budget process. And then we have statistics. And we tried to make these features relevant with where they're at in the publication. So what I mean by that is you'll see statistics for the health department and community health centers. And then there's a little feature about the community health centers.
Question on that page. Is that rust colored bar at the bottom next to the story? Is that supposed to be there?
It is. I think what happened there is that's how it is. And it looks a little bit wonky because most of the titles don't take up that much space. So if we move on to the next one, we could change that.
Yeah, it would look better without it.
Okay. Yeah. In fact, let me make a note of that right now, since more of this clicker doesn't seem to be working now for some reason. I don't know if I hit something I wasn't supposed to. Oh, I may have. Okay. No.
You broke it already.
It never fails. One thing that never fails is that I'll always fail with the clicker. Yeah, so anyway, I just want to, if you go ahead and advance one forward more, please. So you'll see Fleet Crew Excellent, and it looks a little bit better there. So I think we could omit it from that one since the title's longer, it might make it look better. But then on this one again, so we highlighted the Fleet Crew Award with the public works statistics. Next slide. Oh, I think it's working now. Okay, that's odd. Okay. Then we wanted to feature the environmental health program. We also have features about the justice system improvement program, a short write-up about strategic communications, partnerships with elected officials, and of course, programs, equity, diversity, and inclusion, sustainability. And there's a little feature that goes along with sustainability, showing how we're upgrading our facilities, using solar to be more sustainable. We have a short description of each department. And then there's just some features to highlight some things that we've done. National Crime Victims' Rights Week through the District Attorney's Office. This ROTC cadets flag raising at the Crystal Lake Cemetery really highlights, for the Crystal Lake Cemetery and its historic importance, and how really the county and the community have done a good job of maintaining the cemetery.
I have a question, just going back one step to the department descriptions. I know that you pulled those from the old website. Has each one of the department heads now had a chance to look at their department description to make sure that they're current?
We pulled them from the website. We made some updates. We haven't sent the descriptions to all the department heads.
Okay.
We can certainly do that. It's probably a good idea. And if we're going to do that, we should probably make sure that we're updating the website that way too. And I can check in just to see if that's on our radar for the new website, to make sure that we have updated descriptions for each department, because some of them are pretty far off. Yep.
Yeah.
I did make some adjustments to the health department because prior to my edits, the environmental health program was called out as a separate division, which it's not. It's part of public health division, so we tucked it into that paragraph.
I'll plan to send that out to the directors. And if we need to take another week to get the report out, I think that's fine, as long as we can get it out, hopefully by the end of August.
I guess I would just echo that as well. My eye caught, and this happens a lot, we call the finance department a lot. We're the financial services department. That's how we have now been, but I understand why, we've been called just about everything, budget, finance, a little bit of everything. So trying to get that consistency. So I think it would be a good idea to just, because there has been a fair amount of change that we want to try to reframe. And I'm happy to help you with some of that because we did a lot of that trying to be consistent when we were doing the budget presentation to the committee. So I'm happy to help be a second pair of eyes for you if you like.
Oh, great. Yeah, that would be excellent. Thanks, Rick. And so I think, and that's awesome because we can also make sure that we have our website updated that way.
Just one other thing, and I'm familiar with what Suzanne's talking about in terms of the health department description, because that was another one we all worked together a lot to try to get that a little bit more crafted. I wonder too, I know that this is looking backwards in terms of 21, 23, but as we start to think about some of the changes that are with the health centers and how that sort of wraps and how do we want to describe that here? I know this is looking.
I don't think in the biennial report it's necessary. Yeah. Okay. Because this is just such a high level overview, upcoming changes.
I mean, just would you describe the health center separate than not roll it as part of the health department?
It's described in kind of a both kind of way.
Oh, it's okay. I'm sorry.
In fact, we sort of overplay the integration, co-location integration, which isn't completely the case, but is largely the case when it comes to like behavioral health and some of public health. But I think it's, for purposes of this report, I think it's adequately worded unless April disagrees. Okay, when April looks at it, she'll.
I'll be sure to do that. I'll do that today. And but yeah, we tried to get good information in here, but also streamline it as much as possible. That's always the tricky part for the general public, is to ensure that the information is consumable.
And my hope is in the next biennial report, not only would the new Health and Human Services Department be called out, but whatever accomplishments have occurred in terms of that greater integration coordination could be maybe one of the pullouts. Hopefully.
Yeah, and so this is, but this gives us a great template also for future reports as well.
Those are really nice too.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, we're working on our photo archive and organizing that. In fact, that's one thing I think worth mentioning is that we have a county Flickr page now. And so that allows us to put our photos in categories and anyone can access them and use them, which is good outreach for the county in general. It supports us as an organization as well. Thank you. And then, so we had one for National Crime Victims Week, the flag raising at the Historic Cemetery. And then we also featured, it's not working again. We highlighted the offices with elected officials separate from the departments. With a brief description about each of those. And center groundbreaking. I think maybe it times out if you don't click soon enough or something. I don't know, because it seems it's working again now. Some more features about the solid waste process work group, sustainability, fair participation, and our Benton breakfast. And that's all. So please feel free to look through it again. If you have any updates, we can make those still, and I will get the department descriptions sent out to the directors and make sure that that's also tracking to get that updated on the website.
We probably do need, there's just one health services phone number, and that's not the way things work. So probably a health department administration main line, which that might be it actually. And then community health centers would have a separate, I don't think you want one person receiving all phone calls to community health centers. Yeah, we have to look at that.
Yeah, because this part here with the contact information at the end, yeah, that's supposed to be current. So
break it out. Yeah.
Okay.
Another comment on the contact page there and the website. Especially
Yeah,
redoing that.
I completely agree. Yeah, we need to do that. It looks like maybe it could even go in that blue area there between At Your Service Every Day and follow us on social, or possibly right below At Your Service Every Day.
Although I don't know if we want to highlight the website now before it's been redone. I'd rather draw people to it in January or February,
Yeah.
frankly.
It's our
It-
website.
Yeah, it just gets, I hear so many complaints about it.
Very out of date.
Yeah, that's a good point too. It would make sense to have our website on there.
It does make sense, I agree.
Well, this publication is going to be for a while.
That's another possibility is we can update it and reprint it. And in fact, that's the plan, is to not print too many of them, knowing that we can print more if we need to. That's always tricky with publications too, because you get a substantial discount when you print a lot, so.
In general, these balance between pictures, text, and people tend to take a look at it versus a big block of words. And, doesn't work so well these days.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it's a nice opportunity to be transparent and visually pleasing. So I'm glad that we tackled it.
Just a quick question. I was curious, Corey. So traditionally, we've always done a biennial report after the budget. Do we do any kind of annual report in any way? Or is it just focused biennial? Is that tradition? Just a thought. I mean, the only reason I'm saying this is because as I was doing this and helping him, particularly with the budget, I felt like I was using really old information because I was highlighting the 21-23 budget from 2 years ago, which nothing wrong with that. It's just, it felt some ways I was giving really old information and there wasn't anything as, more fresh in terms of information. So I know one of the struggles always with a biennial budget is that you're always 2 years, just that long period of time. And perhaps, I don't want to make more work for anyone, but perhaps there's a discussion, down the road around strategic communications. Would an annual report maybe replace it and maybe be something a little, maybe not as busy as not that, I mean, this is good. It's just maybe something a little more briefer and less work for you, but it gets more current and fresh. Yeah, that's just a comment, just because I know when I was putting this, like, okay, I'll do this, but it feels like it's really old stuff.
We did talk a little bit, I think, in our one-on-one conversations about whether or not it made sense to include this biennium's budget and as the same graphic in this, but it seemed like it kind of confused things. And so maybe there is a role for kind of an annual report that's just a 2-pager, coming out in the middle of the biennium. I don't know.
Or we could do an annual report that's more streamlined and then a biennium report every other year.
Yeah.
Please, no criticism, very good information. I just wanted to share that as my first experience going through this. It's like, because I was doing the same thing. It did make sense that I would put new information, but I was like, gosh, there's all this really cool stuff that would be great for people to know, but yet I need to talk about the whole budget.
One of the things we didn't do at all is highlighting our art grants, which is kind of
Yeah, we discussed that, and I know that was something, it was, the tricky part was streamlining it enough at that point because it would have, and so that was,
that deserves its own publication at some point.
yeah.
I think that's where an annual report sort of lends itself nice to when you can look at the last 12 months, think about some of the big highlights of maybe it's not so budget focused, it's more around some of the big pieces of work that was in ARPA would be one of those, but the great work of homelessness work that Rebecca and others doing, there's different spots that you can kind of pick out in terms of the last 12 months. Anyway,
Yeah, I appreciate that feedback, and certainly with the budget kind of being the centerpiece and you being the expert, then we would definitely want to get your leadership and feedback on that. So this is something that we can definitely follow up with and see what's going to work
and
best.
there might be some opportunities from a number standpoint to use actuals, because we're using budgetary numbers here. And I think that when I first started filling this out, I was thinking, well, aren't we using actual information? And so maybe there's a way to use actual expenditures, because budget gives you a budget, but then there is exactly where you fit within that. And oftentimes we're well below in terms of where the budget is.
Yeah, I think it's great. And I just want to make sure that we keep our eye on making it clear on what we're trying to communicate, so it's easily consumable and doesn't confuse the public at all. But I think, yeah, because, to your point, probably when we show the graphics like this, it's easy maybe for folks to read into it ways that could be a little bit misleading.
Yeah, there are people that look very close to the budget numbers, and I know that get a lot of questions from the public in relation to, gosh, you really spend that. So I think that's where the actuals maybe come in down the road.
Yeah, anything we can do for transparency that way is a good thing.
That will be something that we will follow up on next year prior to July to see if there's something we want to do.
Well, and especially when the improved website comes online, the budget discussion and have more flexibility in getting current numbers. This is looking backwards on the website. Look forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to have something that we could show on the website that's not just a PDF, but I know that can be expensive and tricky sometimes, but maybe there's a way that we can do that as well to make it more graphically appealing on the website than just a PDF.
Well, like Rick says, there's a lot of interest in our budget, and it would be nice to have a place where we can refer people to at least get started and see if that answers their questions, or different people want different levels of detail, but it's nice to have pie charts and big picture. This is where the chunks are going.
I'm hoping as we start to get more back to normal and through transition and stuff, is to work with Corey, and particularly with the new website coming on, is how do I create budgetary information that is maybe more real and fresh, so that one, it's easier to give Corey that information. It's not a compiling exercise, but we also can use the website to be more specific in terms of some of our diving a little bit deeper in our budget, as opposed to just sort of here's our documents. So that's the project that I want to work with him down the road.
Yeah, sounds great. That's always the tricky part, is diving deeper, but still keeping it clear and concise. Yeah. And that is all I have, unless there's any other questions. Thank you.
Great. Really appreciate the update and efforts that you're putting in to let people know what we're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. Next up, 4.2 Pledge of Allegiance at Board of Commissioners meeting. Zan, did you want to lead that off, or want to turn it over to Sarah?
Well, I can just make a couple comments. This issue was raised to me by a constituent, as you know, and he was fairly upset that we don't recite the pledge before every board meeting. And I told him I would raise the issue with my fellow commissioners that we did when I first began on the Board of Commissioners, recite the pledge before every Tuesday business board meeting, and that we had stopped during COVID. So.
And then Sarah was tasked with doing a little background information.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. One, thank you for letting me even join to expand on this topic, because it is one of those topics that once I started researching, there's a lot more that even I was unaware of that went into it. So if it's okay, I can just briefly kind of touch on the legal precedents around the Pledge of Allegiance and then also the cultural barriers that come with it. So there have been several different court rulings, several that were provided on a document that I could also provide to this group at a later time. So you have the list that I'm reading from.
I've sent that to all three commissioners.
Oh,
they have
perfect.
it.
Okay, excellent. So you have that. But there's been just a series of different court rulings that have ultimately sided in the favor of not requiring people who are in public settings, so public schools, public facilities, to recite the Pledge of Allegiance for many different reasons. One of the biggest cases, the West Virginia v. Barnett case, was along religious lines. So there's a lot of different religious groups within our nation. So I'll also just focus like within our county, for example, Jehovah's Witnesses, Hindus. There's also a certain sects of people who are Buddhists who also refuse to take oaths and recite the Pledge of Allegiance, including certain communities of people who are Catholic, because of the way that the Pledge of Allegiance and the flag has been used by the Ku Klux Klan in our country. In addition to that, there's another religious group, Quakers, who refuse to take oaths as part of their religious beliefs. So I've already kind of touched on the religious aspect of this, and what I'd like to do is also just touch on the historical context of why we even have the Pledge of Allegiance. So the reason the earliest documented existence of the pledge has gone all the way back to 1892, and that was around before to commemorate Christopher Columbus's arrival to our country. And as we know, that resulted in a long period of violence, attempted genocide, sexual assault, and legalized discrimination against Indigenous peoples across our country and our land. In addition to that, there's a lot of connections to racism in our country. In 2017, for example, when there was a rally, a white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, there were oftentimes in these white supremacist rallies, you'll see the American flag being held up in addition to swastikas, in addition to Trump flags, in addition to Confederate flags as well. And in this particular event in 2017 in Charlottesville, Virginia, a white supremacist killed a young woman. And so this is not uncommon in these rallies where the American flag is used, where a lot of violence is encouraged against minorities and people who simply don't believe in racist values that are held by neo-Nazis or the KKK. It's also been used in events of domestic terrorism, most notably the January 6th riots that happened in 2021. In addition to the American flag, there were flags with swastikas, again, Confederate flags, Trump flags. And as we all are very familiar with during this event, there was a crowd of people outside of the United States Capitol building, where there was also guillotine, there was a lynching rope. 138 police officers were injured. 4 officers committed suicide after that event. So the flag has also been heavily symbolized as or used in domestic terrorist attacks as well in our country. And I have just a couple more things I'd like to get through that are pretty important here. When I think about the county, especially as an EDI coordinator, and especially with my work with language services, one of the biggest communities in our county is our Spanish-speaking community. And a lot of the people in that community are migrant workers and immigrants. And in recent decades, children, for example, who migrated to the United States have been forced to recite the pledge in English, even though they don't understand it, in the context of being separated from their parents. And so in many ways, it's used in xenophobia and racism by our government in legalized ways. And so I present all these reasons to this group because as a county EDI coordinator and as a member of this community, as on a personal level, as someone who grew up in this country as an immigrant of people who have very different religious beliefs, I never personally felt comfortable reciting the pledge because a lot of the creation of the Pledge of Allegiance and a lot of the symbolism that comes with the flag is based also in Christian beliefs and white supremacist beliefs. I don't think that's how it started. I don't think that was the intention, but I think the flag has changed meaning over decades, depending on the political climate of our country. Overall, it excludes people who work at the county, and it absolutely excludes people of our greater community here. We have a diverse community of races, ethnicities, religious beliefs, and lived experiences. Our community members come from all parts of the globe, and parts of the globe where they have shared identity with and shared citizenship with. And so I don't really think it would be very aligned with our goals as a county when it comes to our equity and inclusive principles to not consider the impact that this would have on different community members. I also wanted to add that governments generally set the tone for what is permissible and not permissible in their community. And I do think that incorporating the pledge on a local government level will send the message that we condone what it stands for to some degree, and definitely to some people. I think being considered and intentional about the message we're sending with this practice has revealed time and time again that it can be very harmful for communities. And so I would just urge us to consider the impact that it could have if we do implement this again. Thank you for your time. And I apologize for being long-winded.
Thank you, Sarah. April, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Thanks. I share some thoughts with Suzanne. I think they're not nearly as comprehensive or as eloquent as what Sarah could share. Just really appreciate your consideration of the impact of this pledge of allegiance to a flag and to a republic that does not indeed have liberty and justice for all. There's more I could say, but I think I'll just leave it there. Thank you, Sarah, for all of your remarks. And I say that as a United States military veteran and someone who loves this country very much.
Well, my neighbor is Joe Fuller is done Sarah has presented. The Pledge of Allegiance was written in 1892 by Frank Bellamy, a nationalist and member of the Society of Christian Socialists. Bellamy worked for Youth Companion magazine. The magazine was in the business of selling American flags. Bellamy's pledge was used to increase flag sales. And Ku Klux Klan reference, and the original wording was, "I pledge allegiance to my flag," but there was concern in World War I that maybe the immigrants were thinking of their home flag and not the American flag, so it was changed to the flag of the United States of America. So a checkered history, I would say, and seems like part of our job is to be inclusive. And this doesn't do that. And then, I don't know if you mentioned Under God was added in the early 50s. We're fighting the godless. Differentiate ourselves. And I don't think we have to decide anything today, but rather than just recite some words that have been around for a while. A lot of people don't think about as they're reciting. We might make a more meaningful start to our board meetings. A quote from a famous American, or today in history, such and such happened. Something that's more meaningful and fresh, and good. Whoever was leading the meeting or had the inspiration that day could bring something appropriate. You know, I think something to think about. Being a recovering history major, I always like to look and if they still do the GT added on this date in history, go back hundreds of years. What happened? Might be a little more meaningful start to a meeting, but I think we can mull this over and appreciate the research, because it does have a checkered past. And do we really want to align ourselves with the Ku Klux Klan? I don't think so. So, any other comments?
Yes. I guess I was just going to say, I think it should be up to the chair. That was, I would thank you for explaining how this got on the agenda, because I feel like it didn't have to be this big of a deal. Maybe it did. I don't know. Maybe it's a bigger deal than I realize. I fully acknowledge that I'm a middle-aged white lady, and I have lots of privilege that I don't always know that I have. I really don't care if we do it or not. That makes any sense. If I go to other meetings, I personally feel comfortable saying it, so I say it. If people don't want to say it, I really could not care less. I don't have any problem with people not wanting to do it. I don't have a problem if we don't want to do it. My feedback, though, is that I prefer, so first of all, thank you for all the information, the work and the time that was put into putting this together. I really do appreciate that. I do feel like it was very one-sided. I felt like the question was asked, why is the Pledge of Allegiance bad? Why is the flag bad? And that was the answer we got.
The question that I asked Sarah to look into was to bring information from an equity perspective.
I prefer when we have topics like this that we have, what I'm missing here is the pros, and maybe there aren't pros. I don't know. I feel like, again, as a middle-aged white lady, there are some pros. That's just my perspective, and I don't have the lived experience that many other people do in this country and in Benton County. I'm still left wondering, like, well, are there still pros? Are there still a good side? And in addition, I feel like it's not just why is the pledge bad, but why is the flag bad? So should we be removing our flags from all of our buildings? Which I don't think we should, but that's just, sorry.
Oh no, sorry, if it's okay, I just wanted to quickly add to that, when I was asked to provide some information about this, and when, things from an equity perspective, when I think about certain topics, for example, when it comes to the pledge, when it comes to the flag, it absolutely does have pros, I believe, for very specific group of people, for the dominant group of people. And when I say pros, I mean, it could be something as simple as just no negative impact, maybe just neutral. But the reason that this was presented in the way that it was is because there really isn't a lot of pros or purpose behind the Pledge of Allegiance that I found in my research that had to do with anything outside of nationalism. And nationalism is something that I've, history-wise, through my education, I learned a lot about, particularly in the context of war and particularly in the context of racism. And so I would be more than happy to dig into more of the research, but I also want to just caveat that by saying that there's not, objectively, there's nothing inherently wrong with the Pledge of Allegiance. There's nothing inherently wrong with our flag. And I don't think that was the intention of anything that I put on that paper, in that document. It was more to explain the cultural context and what it's come to symbolize in our present day for a lot of folks.
It is, so again, I'm trying to work through my own, short-sightedness and see it from everybody else's point of view. But, the question I think of is, why do a bunch of racists get ruined for me,
I would echo that sentiment. It's, but any symbol, it can be captured by various people over time, and its meaning changes, as Sarah said. And I think that's the hard part. That right now, personally, when I see a large truck flying multiple American flags from it, it's very intimidating. And the message to me is, is fear. And I don't like that. I don't like that use of the flag.
So are we just going to let everyone, are we just going to let the bad people in this country take it over?
No, I agree with you there, but I'm also uncomfortable with the Pledge of Allegiance. And it's very aspirational.
That is how I take it when we say, with liberty and justice for all, I do take that as aspirational and a goal and a target, not that, oh, we live in a perfect country. I know our country is not perfect and there's lots of people I disagree with, but I'm still happy to live in this country and try to work to make it the best that we can.
Agreed.
It's really unfortunate that this has become fodder for culture war. Really, that's what it comes down to.
Again, I don't think we need to add it on the agenda. I don't think we need to say it. If somebody else here wants to say it, that's fine with me, but
something that occurred to me just, clearly it's going to be a very divisive issue. I don't think one body stating the allegiance with good intent is going to change the country to the positive necessarily, or take it back. I do believe that the three of you demonstrate patriotism quite clearly through the work you do and the way you do it transparently and with democratic principles. That's something that Benton County can be very proud of.
Thank you. Yeah, I would prefer not to reinstate the practice.
Intentionally did not bring forth a motion or anything because it's just a discussion forum. So you can leave it there if you choose or come back to it at any time, of course.
Well, good discussion. And I think appreciate your
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So 4.3, grant applications and funding requests.
Mr. Chairman, so appreciate you allowing us to put this on your agenda today. Invited Sharice to speak our as well. So you're all familiar. We've been trying to throw a little bit more process and accountability around some of our community type grants that have been traditionally done in the past. and putting those in front of you to be approved individually as opposed to during the budget process. So this is a continuation of that. What we have for you today is 4 small grants. That 3 of them are traditional grants that we have done for the city of Adair, city of Paloma, and city of Monroe. And these are all grants that have traditionally been funded with resources from the budgeting tax, in which we are proposing $10,550 grants. This is $10,000 last time as an inflationary factor that we put forward. The purpose of these grants have traditionally been for economic development. You might recall last time we just checked to them. Now we are putting in grant formats for each of these and are asking for some additional follow-up reporting. Not overly accountability, but at least having some documentation in place that would just highlight the use of resources. I started to think about the conversation we were just having around annual report. And so things like this gives us additional information that we can share if indeed necessary to how our resources were used. So that's for 3 of the grants that are proposed in front of you. What we included was the formal agreement that Teresa has with the Vance Legal Counsel put together so we can use this for all of our grants going forward. And then the 4th grant that we have put in here is in relation to the Lynn Benton Food Share. And this is specifically, they did make a application for the biennium for this particular grant. We are suggesting $75,960, which again, this is based on last biennium amount that you awarded plus 5.5% inflation. I know they did ask for more of $100,000 of resources, I think was what their application was, but this is what we had kind of built into the budget. Again, this is a grant that the county has traditionally provided to help really more of what I would call a capacity grant for their support in providing services to the community. So those are our 4 grants. Again, we would throw this in the same type of format. We'd ask for some reporting just to make sure that we can count the resources. So in summary, 3 grants for $10,550 each for each of these, and 1 grant for $75,960 for the limit.
And we have a motion, correct?
On page 66, and I know we try not to have decisions, but I know that with the grants and the timing, so that's why that's here today.
Motion. I move to approve the requested funding totaling $105,960 through 4 separate grant applications, including $10,000 each to the cities of Philomath, Monroe, and Adair Village, totaling $30,000 for economic development and $75,960 to Community Services Consortium Lynn Benton Food Share for purchase of emergency food and supplies to support residents of Benton County seeking resources.
I would second it with the amendment that that's not 10,000 each to the 3 cities, but 10,550.
Actually, I apologize. I made a mistake.
Consider that a friendly amendment.
Nancy is correct in her motion. I made the mistake by saying it was because this was a discussion I know that we had as a commissioners, but you can certainly change if you like. That these particular you wanted to maintain 10,000.
Oh no, so it is 10,000. So
yeah.
Okay, I withdraw.
I apologize. That's bad. That's okay. But that's how we had traditionally handled. But this one you felt you wanted to maintain these at 10,000.
Okay.
But the total 105,960 is correct.
Is correct.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Sorry about that.
Well, and I appreciate standardization and getting some feedback with
And we will build into a process going forward with all of these things we're doing to make sure that we're collecting information and being able to share that either publicly back to you or how you choose. So you at least have, okay, this is how this money went to work. Then Teresa will go to work and execute some grants.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Teresa.
All right. I think before we do our coordinated homeless response, we'll take a 5-minute break.
6 minutes.
A 6-minute
Sure. We'll resume our goal setting meeting, item 4.4, discussion and coordinated homeless response office. Update and discussion of the House Bill 4123 strategic plan.
All right, I'm just going to tee it up here. We're hoping that this is more of a discussion with you all. We've done a lot of updating too over the last several months. Rebecca, our incredible project manager, has done so much work along with the team to bring the strategic plan to where it is now. And so we're going to update, where we've been, and then really hope to dig into a discussion of how we can align your values, your commissioner's values with our 4123 strategic plan. Thank you. That's okay.
Yeah, thank you. So just to follow up with April about the purpose of today's meeting, so if we could go to the next slide, please. So we've given quite a few updates over the last year as we've been developing, one more slide, sorry, developing both the strategic plan and understanding exactly how House Bill 4123 implementation will look like in our community, given the resources we have and the staffing capacity we have at the county. And so really I'm going to fly through this information quickly with the intent that we will have opportunity for questions regarding any of the slides that we cover that you might have additional questions, but we really wanted to intentionally give some space to have some dialogue with you, because a lot of our report outs have simply just been that, is reporting out and not an opportunity to really address some of your detailed questions. Obviously, we may not be prepared to address those questions today, and we'll be happy to do any research or additional development necessary. So basically, we're here to give you a general update, some updates about the strategic plan organization for helping inform our work moving forward and communicate with our community. And then also the partner engagement that we've been conducting over the last several months to inform the development of our strategic plan. And then, as April talked about, is really understanding how we make sure that there's been intentional conversations internally at the county to make sure we're aligning with the commissioner's priorities as we've been working in our community to do the same with our partners. Next slide, please. And so really, at this point, we really are grounding all our work in the values and vision of the HOPE bylaws, really making sure we have that as a North Star. And so just this really is the foundation of our strategic planning process and the work of the coordinated office and the way we engage our community. So really the why we're doing it and how we intend on accomplishing that is these pillars right here. And then next slide, please. So as far as a recap, we talked to you about the work that we have done, not just within the coordinated office over the last year, but also the work of HOPE. In addition to that, the work of our community to develop the update to the 10-year plan, which will be informing our strategic plan for the coordinated office, specifically organized by the strategic priorities and intervention strategies that the update to the 10-year plan informed. And then also work to integrate the HOPE policy recommendations into those specific intervention areas, and also making sure that we're aligning with the requirements of House Bill 4123 and to make sure that our strategic plan is inclusive to our community and responsive. Next slide, please. So really understanding what the purpose of the strategic plan is, meaning that this is a unique document that is serving to inform both county work, but also guiding our community partners as well and has really the intention of implementation and accomplishing specific goals. We've had some great planning processes throughout our community over many years, and making sure that this document was really honing in on some specific strategies that were informed by all those planning efforts of our community for a very long time. So that community roadmap, also work and resource prioritization, has been a real important aspect given the limited resources we have to work with. And then as far as accountability and stewardship is really aligning with the way we want to operate government in our community, is that transparency and our responsible management of resources, along with strategic priorities that are relevant not just to our urban communities, but are inclusive to our rural communities. Next slide, please. And so one of the big parts of the work we've been doing over the last year is understanding exactly what House Bill 4123 means, and what do we need as a community. And so for an effective coordinated response system to be responsive to the community, we identify that there are key components that that system needs. So leadership structure and support for providers and system improvements, sustainable resources and additional funding beyond the local level. That's part of that stewardship. A central point of communication, really understanding who is the lead point on some of these conversations and really centralizing that, along with a strong community engagement component, which has been a really good legacy in our community around community engagement. So preserving that and enhancing that opportunity in our community. So understand that those are the characteristics of a coordinated response system. We now have identified these key parts of our coordinated response system here in Benton County, which includes federal best practices, the Intergovernmental Council, which has representation from member governments and is able to find ways to have that cross operational coordination beyond just Corvallis and Benton County, but also our smaller communities. And then the Hope Advisory Board, that strong community engagement resource that they provide, along with our service provider network, which is the people doing the work in our community and making sure that we are properly aligning them into the work we're doing as the office. And then we have a coordinated homeless response office and staff, which includes Libby Losky-Winter, our grant researcher writer, Julie Arena, our program coordinator, and me, the project manager, along with all the other resources we have as a county that we have many people committed to this work here in our county. Next slide. So the engagement that we've been conducting over the last year has heavily been relying on the feedback we get from the Hope Board, not just from the meetings we've been holding, but also the planning work that they've been conducting over the last several years. So the policy recommendations have really provided a great wealth of information to inform our strategic planning process. So going to them with their experience, not just with the Hope policy recommendations, but each of the members have so much experience in our community and are experts in what they do. And so going to them and asking questions like, does this make sense? Will it be understandable to a broad range of community members for the purpose of that transparency, but also the opportunity to find ways to have collective impact? And then also helping us communicate it better. How is it's organized, how we're describing the work, even questions like, what is a system? What does that mean in the context of a homeless response? And then also very intentional service provider network and partner outreach that we've been conducting, both from a local and regional level, because many of our partners serve more than just Benton County. So understanding how can we have that collective impact, understanding that this issue often does not stay in one spot, and we need to understand how we're leveraging those resources across a region. And so with that, we've had some really great conversations with our service provider network. Specifically, what are you working on the next couple of years? What are you expanding beyond what you're normally doing? Is there any alignment with the intervention or strategic priorities that we've identified in our strategic plan? So we've gotten a lot of great feedback and are now taking that information and organizing it, and hopefully we'll have that packaged up for OHCS deadline. Next slide, please. Thank you. So one development is trying to understand how to really identify the progress of each of these projects. One, making sure that we're keeping within an achievable load of work, but also understanding that some times we might have to prioritize things over other things because of the timelines with our partners. So we previously, the formatting we had before did not include this 5-year breakdown. We're still exploring how best to communicate the discrete actions within each of these projects and what is appropriate to be in a document that's sort of a public facing versus work plans that inform the office's work moving forward. So this is a development since the last time we talked to you, but generally this is where we're headed as far as how do we organize this work that, we may not have direct oversight or authority to lead that work, but how do we make sure that we're giving the information to the public so they have that roadmap, so to speak, about when the best time to leverage the resources that we have in our community. Next slide. So with that, I guess I'll leave some room for questions or if we want to return to any of the slides previously, but really at this point, it's an opportunity for discussion moving forward to understand how we're kind of internalizing this work now. We've gone out to our community and now we're coming back in here and telling you what we found. And so now it's open for discussion.
My biggest question in terms of reading through this stuff beforehand was the interaction between that work plan oriented diagram that you showed us that had the 5-year time frame on it and the alignment at a glance document, and how they intersect, how it all fits together, because I'm still a little confused about that. And I really like that alignment at a glance document that puts the HOPE recommendations into the context of the 10-year plan update, but neither of those are operationalized through a work plan. So I see the need for that back end piece too.
So the alignment at a glance is it was initially prepared as a communication tool to really first organize what all the different categories that we were working with. So we had the categories provided by House Bill 4123. We have the categories or specific actions or policy recommendations identified through the HOPE policy recommendations. Mm-hmm. And then finding those overarching categories to inform projects moving forward. So then we use the update to the 10-year plan. So by showing the alignment between all of those and saying, and then the work plans in the actual strategic plan document, I apologize that I provide the draft that we have it's under a surgery right at the moment with a lot of different things. And so what I guess I didn't provide kind of the link between the alignment at a glance and the specific work plan. So in each of the sections of the strategic plan for those overarching priorities, mm-hmm. we will then present the HOPE policy recommendations again, and then show in narrative how the projects below help move both the policy recommendations forward, meet the requirements of House Bill 4123, and meet those overarching community strategies that we have identified. You have one work plan document. That's just a screenshot of a very small component of the whole plan. So there are a lot more activities, and that's really what we're going to be working on, is making sure, one, there's a lot in there and there's a lot of detail. And so we're trying to move things around for what's best for that kind of North Star, aspirational work and the actual project management level where we know we're meeting the metrics to meet those things forward.
Right. Yeah. We're also, the part of the surgery is sort of bringing some of these specific activities out into a cloud, making the buckets a bit bigger, and then perhaps saving or drilling down in an internal work plan what all the specific activities are. I think in this exercise, going through and convening with so many partners and finding these areas of alignment has allowed us to just really find a broad wealth of work that's happening. And so I think right now that we have all of the work, it's sort of a reorganization that needs to happen now. But one thing that I think is perhaps missing, or an opportunity, and really what we wanted to dive in with you all about, is I think it's in the update to the 10-year plan. There's a specific activity. There's a list of activities that the health department has done relating to homelessness. And I'm sorry, it's not in your packets. I'm just recalling it out of memory. But I believe that it would be beneficial to the commissioners and leadership if we had something like that county-wide. And that's, I guess, what we're getting at with the discussion about alignment with your priorities. Would you like the coordinated office to be going department to department and saying, or we've already connected with Sean McGuire. We understand the work that he's doing to collect some of this information, but where can we align your priorities with all of this work that's going on? And internally, in the county.
Yeah, in the budget process, obviously.
Yeah.
Some of that is captured. And I think it makes sense to acknowledge that and have that clarity. But at the same time, I don't feel like we should just be making more work for ourselves. So I'm cognizant of that too. But I know that Rick has expressed interest in better supporting this work, from the financial perspective, and certainly Darren from community development. And there's a lot of in the health, obviously, but yeah.
Well, no, there's probably more than I'm aware of, even Public Works. Been instrumental in constantly maintaining the shower trailer that we placed near Unity quite some time ago. Unity is responsible for the day-to-day operation of it, but whenever anything goes wrong, and that has happened periodically, a part may need to be replaced. Someone may simply need to examine it to get it working again. They've just been outstanding at making that a priority and getting out there immediately and taking care of it and making sure that it's always functional. And that's just one probably small contribution in the world of Public Works. And yet they've really been a great partner with the health department on that.
That's great.
Yeah, Rebecca, what am I missing? And I think we've talked about so many things in the universe of this work. And I feel like I know that I'm not doing justice to some of the things you've got.
One of the things, thank you. I think it's more that we've identified and started, we've taken on House Bill 4123 as a county, and there are other communities that have done the same as well. And we've already had a staffing capacity within the county before we became a House Bill 4123, or had plans to already have and take that on, really intentionally take that leadership role in this space. And so as we're crafting a strategic plan, the focus has been to our external partners, right? And so there hasn't necessarily been the opportunity to sit down and be like, what does this mean for us internally? And so the document that April spoke to, it was essentially an exercise that Healthy Communities conducted after they had already completed this update to the strategic plan, and showed all the different actions that the health department is doing in each of those intervention areas. Very similar to what I recall when, the 2040 visioning process was happening, where each department would identify how their work aligns with this. And I understand the perception that this might definitely put on more work, but I think that I see this more as a strategic project, like a project that we could put within our strategic plan, identify a lead or however that works, but essentially showing how we would accomplish that inventory of our internal operations around these areas. And not specifically that this is something we want to do like prior to turning the strategic plan. And I think that this is a strategic project in its own right.
Got it. And it makes sense. It makes sense to know what our internal resources are and that we're all rowing in the same direction. Yeah.
Leverage.
Yeah, we have some significant, legislative developments that really touch on multiple different disciplines, that touch just about every department in our community or our county, and a lot of conversations even happening right now with, House Bill 5019, as far as, how can we leverage these changes in the way the funding is happening, or even rethinking the whole process, right? And I think that the more perspectives we have at the table will help us with a better response.
Yeah.
So, House Bill 4123, 2-year funding, and we've just started the second year, is that correct?
But all the reporting was scheduled to be done at the 18-month mark, and the
October we have a report.
Yeah.
August we need to turn the strategic plan in. But I mean, the amount of information, yes, these deadlines have been challenging, but the amount of information that we've been able to gather, and I will say the community's response to come and help us. I mean, they have been helping us move this work so quickly. And it's been, I mean, just amazing to be in this space, to watch our community come forward with such great feedback and willingness to talk about this with, you know, not necessarily knowing where we're headed with this. It's a brand new thing with like even House Bill 4123 and House Bill 5019. They're like, all right, well, let's roll up our sleeves. Let's start working on this. So, been great opportunity.
So on 4123, a fair amount of the state dollars have been spent on personnel, is that correct?
Yep.
And is there a plan after June 30th of next year, how to proceed?
We have funding for our staff through the end of the next biennium. Right, Rick?
Yes, it's kind of interesting timing. I was just about that.
That's what I remember.
So yes, the way we had, so first of all, in terms of the resources from House Bill 4123, the $1 million, it is state general fund. There is, well, we have an agreement in place. There is no specific in terms of used by June 30th, 2025, or even, you know, you'll lose it. So we're okay there. So no problems. I think there was some concerns by a few counties at one point related to that, but we got that all clarified with our meeting with Department of Administrative Services. But April's exactly right. What we have done is sort of a calculation of how far would we be able to get our staffing cost out by using both the ARPA money that we have that from HOPE that was dedicated by you all, along with the $1 million. Now, of course, the hope here is that we will be able to generate other resources that would be able to cover our capacity over time. And so, but we know that we would be able to get through, I think it's 25, 27, paying for our existing staff that you all approved, and 2 staff that you approved in this last position, both Rebecca and I think Libby's position.
And keep in mind that I think some savings is occurring because we were unable to successfully recruit for a full-time employee grant writer researcher. So we have a contracted arrangement with Libby, which is understandably less cost. That arrangement continues, then that just spreads out the dollars a bit longer.
Sure, yeah, and absolutely, we continue to seek sustainable funding beyond fiscal year 20, biennium 25-27. There are many ways in which the sustainability could work. Part of the reason we have a grant writer right now. We really look forward to engaging in some capacity discussions on administration of some larger grants that come with administrative burden, but could bring us substantial funding. So those are things that we'll be teeing up once we can breathe after the 5019 stuff settles down a bit and the strategic plan is done.
I think that inventory idea, where are resources at a county level, where are not resources from a funding perspective, but what are the strategic priorities and plans of each department will help inform that thing, is where could we bring on some of these potential larger grants when we understand where there's opportunity with our other departments. So I think it goes toe in toe, both like understand where we're at, mapping out the system as far as internally, and then understanding where we can plug some of those funding opportunities.
Great, that's reassuring, and I appreciate folks looking out 5 to 10 years. Some long-range planning and get us out of short-term reactionary problem solving. Also, well, how does our short-term efforts fit in with our long-term goals?
Yeah, that's why we jump over all the fires to looking ahead at the horizon.
Yeah.
In your spare time.
Right.
I guess I just want to echo something that Rebecca both said. The work that they're doing around this particular issue, it's really hard. It's really, really hard and takes so much coordination because it's not you can't come up with just one solution. It requires so many multiple layers that all of the departments contribute to. I mean, there are financing solutions, as I've talked about, as Commissioner Oger had mentioned. I think that there's opportunities that can be explored there. I mean, I think community development plays a role. Clearly, health plays a role in all of this. And I think, you know, when you look at the problem of homelessness, it's really trying to think about all of the different parts and how does it fit, how can we fit it together and coordinate it better to help solve a very difficult problem to solve. And it's just, again, I guess I just want to stress the importance that this work really involves so many different departments, and how do we bring everyone together to have a coordinated solution to really make a difference. From a resource standpoint, I know that when I was helping April and Rebecca on the House Bill 5019 reporting, we have some rental assistance monies that I know is in the health department, but I guess I always wondered, you know, look at those resources and what kind of flexibilities are there? There may not be any, but how do we think differently in relation to targeting those resources, not only for the purpose they were intended for, but also to be able to help make a difference in the problems that we're trying to solve around homelessness. So again, I stand in awe of the work that you all do, because I know it's very difficult and very challenging. But it really is going to require a lot of leadership on our part to really be intentional about bringing everything together. So for what it's worth.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to pass that all through, because it's such an honor to manage this work and this team, but it's this staff in this program are and I work in health, right? In public health, are some of the most hardworking, thoughtful, collaborative, and wicked smart people that I've ever worked with. And Rebecca is a huge part of the success of this program and where we are right now. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to follow up real quick what Rick was saying about the ways of looking at things creatively. Interestingly, we had a great conversation with the Northwest and Lynn Benton Housing Authority around House Bill 5019. And we gained understanding about what the voucher programs are and where there's challenges with even getting people into units. And so that conversation wasn't, let's go separately and use this House Bill 5019 funding to create another rental assistance program that would be competing for the limited, right? But exactly, right? But it was the idea of bringing it to them and saying, yeah, like we see this, we can give you that information, and starting conversations, like just starting inquiries. If anything, this House Bill 5019, along with the funding, has given our community an opportunity to walk through this very quick planning process. And I will have to say that it was 3 weeks to do it, but I will say that when the experience we had with Rocket, gave us, I want to say our team, at least an understanding of what it would be like to lift something up this quickly. And so we used a lot of that, that toolbox that we got from Rocket for that. So it was a force multiplier for our community, which was pretty exciting. So just to speak on leveraging those resources and seeing how we can build on each thing and not look at everything as an isolated fire.
That's great. And I'm really glad to hear that both Lynn Benton Housing Authority and Dip Northwest are a little bit more, are stepping up a little bit more. Those two have been very difficult to engage.
Yeah, Karen in particular has been really just participating. I haven't been in the meetings with the team, with her, but just having them come to the table for the local planning group and engaging in email correspondence.
We need them.
It's been really great.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Any other questions?
You want us to go for it, then
Keep up
and conquer.
Yeah, I would say that, your question about about our commissioner's priorities, your work is smack in the middle of it, that homelessness and housing insecurity. And of course, it has an equity component and a health component and community resiliency component, all of the above. And it definitely intersects with all of the criminal justice work because of the fact that there are so many people that are unhoused that, become legally entangled. So I have no doubt whatsoever that all of the work you're doing is smack dab in the middle of what we're trying to do. And responsible governance as well, just in terms of being community engaged and transparent.
Well, and I appreciate the discussion of which Benton County departments you can partner with, and I wouldn't have thought of public works and forgotten about the shower trailer, but just figuring out maybe not all departments have a slice of this effort, but probably most of our departments do or can. And that's part of my comment to Corey Grogan about being creative and what's out there. We have some notion of the scale of the problem, but trying to be clever and creative about accessing resources that are out there is worthwhile effort. Hopefully we can continue along those lines.
No, I'm just,
he's ready.
This kind of work is, again, having some history in this, it's exciting to see. And I'm so happy with Rebecca and the work that is going on. And it always starts small, but there are so many opportunities. And when you talk about looking at other departments, I think, and it's not so much true in this community, but transportation is often sometimes in your bigger communities, particularly like the metropolitan area, where services, one of the biggest challenges for the homeless population is getting and navigating the services. So how do I get from point A to point B? Again, I know that's not as big an issue here because of a smaller area, but those are the type of things that you often don't even think about. What about identification? These are all areas that are kind of separate. And I just haven't seen it from the state standpoint of all these different state agencies coming together and recognizing, oh my gosh, I can actually help this problem and not even realize, DMV was a perfect example. They didn't ever think about the issue of homelessness, but identification is such a critical piece.
Yeah.
They came to the table and we were able to figure out ways in which we could help the population to be able to get ID easier. So again, just appreciate your comments and thoughts. And I think those are the kind of thinking outside the box we have to do. And I know Rebecca's always thinking that way, but how do we continue to leverage that going forward? So
I want to make sure that I mention Julie Arena, Libby Lewski-Winter, and Kay Beals, and all of them have come to the table to create this dynamic group that really works to think outside of boxes. However, we do have to fill some boxes out. So speaking of that, I'm thinking possibly maybe the way that we give feedback, or I guess our response to the feedback we've gotten today is a strategic action item within our strategic plan. It would likely go under sort of that systems level organization component and articulate essentially just working to identify, cross-departmental opportunities, something like that. We've had one placeholder that's specifically around rural housing solutions, which that in effect would have some overlap with our departments, but I think maybe something I'll work with you to figure out how we can articulate a specific action item regarding what we talked about today, and then figure out how to come back and understand exactly how to initiate that project and when it's appropriate to do so.
Mm-hmm. That sounds good.
Thank you. Appreciate the update and hard work.
It's a good team. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you tell us, going back to 2019?
Sorry, I know I threw that slide in there just in case you want to talk about that.
We submitted our proposal for the transitional housing, or I'm not sure that that's what they're calling it, rapid rehousing. Thank you. And there hasn't been a call for proposals yet on the shelter side, correct?
So the way that this worked out is we had until, I believe, what was it, July 21st when I was there? It's all blurred together. So July 21st, we had to turn in the community plans, which informed the usage of the formula-based rapid rehousing. We need to submit the shelter addendums at that same time. So we submitted a shelter addendum on behalf of Unity Shelter. That's the one addendum that we submitted in our community. We did get feedback on, 4:45 on Friday, that we had some missing information from our plan.
It was in another part of the plan, but they want it up in a different part.
Right, exactly. So we are addressing putting the things in the right boxes, and Libby and I worked on that yesterday, and I just need to hop in there and just make sure that it's all cleaned up, and I want to get that in later today. And then we've also learned that there is a lot of flexibility. Specifically, there were two components of the community plan. There is a workbook that identifies the allocation of the funding, and then there's the community planning template, which is really that milestones. How are you going to meet these metrics of getting 33 people rehoused in your community, all the different things you're going to do around that. And then also that community analysis as far as our overrepresented subpopulations. So we've addressed the information they want, but the thing that breaks down the specific allocation of the funding, they're not using that in the agreements. We've learned really that's just a guiding document because they want to make sure that the agreements don't have to be fixed or not fixed, revised every month when we're moving that money around because they've come to, I don't know if they've come to realize or maybe it was their original plan all along, but that communities will need more time than 3 weeks to really understand where the funds need to go and where the resources need to go to meet the metrics that OHCS is wanting to achieve. So
I think they're making it up as they go along because
I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and that they're the experts in this, and I'm just waiting for them to tell me what to do. I need somebody to step up and see it.
Yeah.
So
we're working right now as you know, we're in a really unique place, right? As a 4123 community, but we're not service providers here. Working with CSC to designate them as the fiscal agent, probably that will mean that much of the administrative funds that come to overhead stuff is going to go to them. We're still working out all the details on specific projects and proportions, but that's where we are right now, is ironing out specific roles. And I think it would be good for Suzanne, you and I, and maybe Rick to get together to just talk about what that needs to look like in terms of a formal agreement once we have everything sort of listed out informally.
Some complexity to the administration is I guess not necessarily complexity, opportunity is that the administration funds can be used for technical assistance, a lot of other things beyond the reporting of the funds itself and cutting checks. And so understanding how we want to leverage that as a community. So that's understanding the different roles, especially with the unique nature that we are a county with the coordinated office and our other communities. You know, we have a housing authority that's leading that, both the House Bill 4123 and House Bill 5019 is absorbing all that and going directly with their service providers. So understanding what space we're holding here, I think it's an opportunity, even with development around House Bill 4123, that this is kind of helping us. What kind of relationship do we have with our partners in this space? So yeah, I think it's innovative, very innovative opportunity here.
Has there been additional collaboration with Lincoln and Lynn as well?
So actually, we just had a conversation with CSC yesterday because we want to know how much information we would need to address OHCS and if we needed to really iron out what level of detail we are in relation with them. Knowing that we had a response from OHCS that says actually it's, you know, a little more flexible than our original request seemed to be. The conversation with CSC there is because they were part of the multi-agency committee through their opt-in county, Lynn County specifically, right? They had been soliciting projects for a couple months now with no perception of a limitation of, you know, like that they had a specific allocation. So they've had some proposals and they had quite a few proposals that came in with the shelter addendum request too for Lynn County. So the conversation is how does many of not many of the proposals that they received were of service organizations that serve Tri-County. And so where could we leverage the Benton County allocation if CSC is already overseeing a potential project with our partners? So that was just an initial conversation we started with CSC, but definitely as we understand more what OHCS is looking at as far as timelines, and then also getting more information about our resources, like with the conversations with Lynn Benton Housing Authority just starting, we're still gathering information here to see where we can leverage this opportunity in Benton.
Yeah, and Peggy and team at CSC they've been a wealth of information as they're participating in both of the other counties' efforts. So we're learning along the way, both through direct engagement with our partners in the other counties and with CSC as well.
Who's taking the lead in Lynn County?
Their emergency manager, Eric.
So some public health in there.
Thank you.
Looking ahead a little bit, I think the Oregon legislature is in themes, and as far as, well, we're behind on a lot of things. 2017 was transportation, 2019 was education. 2021 was, I think, just dealing with the pandemic. So that theme was forced on us. And the session that just concluded was housing, and I'm hoping that this isn't a one-time theme. Governor's efforts, I think there's a chance a lot of these initiatives will continue and maybe have, but I guess I wouldn't take that for granted.
Well, and to that point, one of the things that OHCS staff have said in the discussions that I've had the pleasure to sit in on is that the shelter component of this discussion in particular, and but also the rapid rehousing, they're designing these processes in order to get the best information possible from all across the state about need. And so they're going to get far more requests for shelter dollars than they have available. That's probably 36 times more, you know, who knows? And so their intent is to use this information to leverage ongoing, you know, programmatic change and change the way that they're funding local homelessness services. And I'm hoping that there's an appetite in the legislature to take that seriously, because this has been a problem for a long time. And this is the first time the state is really getting a handle on the scale of the need.
Get back to work.
Thank you both.
Yeah, thank you.
Next up, 4.5 county administrator updates.
Thank you. Just to repeat, I think what I've probably already conveyed, the remainder of this month is really focused on warm handoff and transition to Rick and preparing for that later transition to Rachel when she arrives. I do want to also thank Tracy Martineau, HR Director, for being such an instrumental part to this transition and walking along with me, with Rick, and with Rachel every step of the way until she arrives and beyond. Appreciate it very much. A number of performance evaluations that I'm working to complete between now and the time I depart. And for those that are not complete, but also due soon after I leave, I'll leave behind my notes, which can be added to Joe Kirby's documentation, as well as the self-evaluations of those employees to make it easy for Rick and or Rachel to move those forward. But I will complete all of them if I can, that are due by October 1st, if I'm able to do that. Completed the Health and Human Services Director position description. I want to express appreciation to our partners in Lane County and Lincoln County for sharing their examples with me. Obviously, we are not exactly like either one of those two counties, but the information they provided was nevertheless helpful in terms of comparing it to what we already have here in formulating that job description. I've handed it back to Tracy Martineau to review one more time. And then she is beginning the process of seeking out an executive search firm and then moving forward with preparing to create a job announcement and begin that recruitment process. And then as you know, but I think it's very, very new news, our community health centers Executive Director Carla Jones is going to be departing the county. Her last day will be September 29th. Really appreciate Carla and her future employer's willingness to allow her to give us nearly 60 days notice. That's incredibly helpful and generous. And I think as Carla has conveyed to those that she's communicated with so far, it's a very difficult decision for her. As you know, she's very passionate about the mission of community health centers. She is, however, accepted a position that is, I think, a great fit for her and her background, her expertise, and allows her to continue to be connected to community health centers all across the state. She also, fortunately, Sherlyn, a previous community health centers director, created some robust transition planning documents, which Carla is following and will update and hand off upon her departure. We'll be talking with the Community Health Center Board in terms of how to move forward with an interim appointment, as well as how to get started on a longer term recruitment plan for that position. Ideally, the Health and Human Services Director would be on board first and could be involved in that selection process for the CHC Executive Director. So I and or Rick and or Tracy will be bringing updates to you along the way in terms of how that's going, both in the interim and moving forward for the longer term.
Quick question.
Yeah.
We also, of course, have the Health Department Director role that April's filling very capably as an interim. Is planning for that also going on?
That position becomes the HHS Director. The Health Department Director, remember, is no longer necessary once the HHS Director is here, because HHS Director will oversee all the divisions of the HHS Department. But April would return to her Public Health Division Director role, unless she chooses to apply for the HHS director role and is successful. Yeah, thank you for that question. And April has indicated a willingness to continue on in that interim role until the HHS director is filled, but I also believe that Rick and Rachel should be checking in with her along the way, depending upon how long that takes. They may choose to be flexible with those coverage arrangements for everyone involved. So far, going well with April and Sarah Hartstein and Rocio Munoz stepping up into those other roles to fill them out.
You mentioned the term HHS director. Is that the official new title?
Right. In May, when you all gave the vote to create the new department and consolidate the divisions, also approved the new title of Health and Human Services Department, recognizing not that we have a full human services division in the county, of course, and neither does Lincoln County, and yet they still refer to themselves as Health and Human Services Department. Some feedback that I received before bringing that proposal to you was that simply continuing to call it the health department might not be the best just from an organizational culture perspective in terms of the community health centers feeling sort of subsumed as opposed to merging together and becoming one. Health services is what the whole has been called for a while, but that's not very inclusive either, because the health department does a lot of policy work. It's not all direct service. It has that greater community policy responsibility of work, as does behavioral health and developmental diversity. So because health and human services is such a common term across the state and the country for this type of work, and because acknowledging that we do have actual human service work within our health component of the county, especially with developmental diversity, which is very much a human service function and is actually, oversight agency at the state is the Human Services Department, not the Health Authority. So landing on, even though, it's impossible to make absolutely everybody happy with a new name, we did feel that this would be the most inclusive of all of the components, still acknowledging, of course, that the Human Services Anti-Poverty Agency in our community is the Community Services Consortium with whom we work closely. And that's all I have.
Any questions? We'll move on to Commissioner updates. Who'd like to start us off?
I can start off. It's been a kind of a strange piece of time, having been away at NACO and then with Family Matters last week. The NACO conference was useful and productive. It's very, very hot. And I overall came away with a feeling that the annual legislative conference is more worthwhile than the annual meeting. But I had never been to the annual meeting, so now I have a better sense for that. Probably what was most useful to me was some of the public safety and law enforcement meetings that I went to, which I'm on that NACO committee, so fairly engaged there. But there were also some good substantive meetings on housing and homelessness. The other is that I had the pleasure of participating last week on Thursday with the board of the Oregon Community Foundation when they had their board retreat here in Benton County. They hosted the first day of their retreat here in Corvallis, and then they took off for Monroe to that day to also visit down there and go to the new South Benton Food Pantry expansion, Kippy-Nack-Neck, that Janice Cook has started with a team of very dedicated volunteers. And it's a really impressive site. I had not been in that church building before. They've partially remodeled it so far. but it has a really great capacity to serve as a senior feeding site. It's got the food pantry and gleaners, which that area they're still raising money for it because it needs significant expansion and modernization. But they also host AA meetings, and there's office space where the other community groups are already starting to meet with clients. Cardva is down there once a week to meet with victims of domestic violence in the area. They also have a performing arts space. So they're using the former sanctuary upstairs and working with Aria Frankfurter to host regular concerts and performing arts performances. So it is going to be a true multifaceted community center, and it's very exciting to see what they've managed to put together. And Oregon Community Foundation has been an investor in that, and I think they'll continue to support that venture. So I had the opportunity to ride down on the bus with this group, give a little bit of a Benton County tour as we rolled down 99 and then came back to the reception at the museum, the Corvallis Museum. And the reception was very interesting just because it featured not only their board members, but local partners and a lot of grantees. So there were many, many familiar faces in the room from community serving organizations, ranging from the arts to environment to social services to across the spectrum that OCF funds university and the OSU Foundation, for instance. So it was useful. And I'm looking forward to staying in touch with folks at the foundation and, wearing both my county commissioner hat and my Benton Community Foundation hat, because the community foundation locally also has relationships with OCF, and they support some of the same grantees, and OCF sometimes funds work at the Benton Community Foundation as well. So it's a multifaceted kind of a relationship. I was approached by Elena Chavez Valdez Chavarria the other day to meet about the Corvallis Multicultural Literacy Center. As you are probably both well aware, that entity had to move from their city-owned digs in what was called the Sunflower House on 9th Street to a campus building fairly abruptly, and it changed their services a fair bit, and then COVID hit them hard, just like any other entity. But they are realizing now, coming out of COVID, with the larger paid staff, they need new space. So they're, like many of the other nonprofits in the community, looking at space requirements, and we're wondering, how they could work with the county on that front. So I didn't mention the ARPA funding opportunity because I'm not sure exactly where we are. But I did suggest that she reach out to the Benton Community Foundation because they're working with several different groups that are also looking for new homes. And I'm hoping that there's perhaps some synergy across all of these groups that are needing space that have some overlapping constituencies that we also try to serve through the county.
So the Sunflower House is owned by OSU, not the city.
Yes, by OSU, sorry, I misspoke. Yes, and they took it, they needed to take it down when they were building their new student housing development.
Yes.
Yes. That was challenging, wasn't it? It was challenging.
Just sitting with that, yeah.
Then I also participated in the city's government corner this last weekend, which was the first time I'd done that, taking a seat at the library. Right in the entryway, and I had a lot of interaction with people, and it was positive. I was glad that I had done it. I don't know if either of you have had a chance to do that, but it's just good to be there. I did discover that I don't think it gets promoted very well, so people were kind of surprised to see me there. Well, how do we know who's coming when? But that's some feedback I can probably provide to Patrick Rollins.
Yeah, I think it's just like a little thing on their calendar. I don't know if they.
Yeah.
And so I haven't ever done it as a commissioner, but I did it as a city councilor a couple times before COVID, but it's hard. I keep, kids, and we've got sports and birthdays and family time.
Yeah. I suppose we could have promoted it too, but
the problem is the city didn't have people regularly showing up, and so they didn't want to promote it. And then people come and no one's there.
Yeah.
Catching on more regularly.
Yeah. It was good to do.
It's a good idea.
Mhm.
And Saturday market and
Yep, there was a lot going on. There was the art
summertime.
sale, our local, the Arts Guild used to be the Clothesline Art Sale. I think they're still calling it that, was taking place in Central Park right across the street. So there were a lot of people in and out
Oh,
all morning, partly because of that as well. And I had a blast during my fair shift, that other than it being beastly hot in the arena. So it was good. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more about fair attendance numbers and how things went. You know, it used to be when we had a hot fair, it really depressed the numbers, but now every summer's hot. So I'm not sure, you know, how much of a differential effect it's having anymore.
this was kind of normal summertime. Saturday was a bonus, but it was probably cooler than average. So I haven't seen anything. It's when you get into the 90s that head for the water or do something other than.
I think it was in the 90s on Thursday. I don't know.
It was very hot.
I visited on all 4 days, but Thursday, let's see, yeah, Thursday was the day it went the longest. The kids did the rides that day. It was hot.
Were they there when the power went out?
No, but I heard about that. I was curious what went wrong there.
I don't know. Our neighbor kids were, you know, on the rides, up, suspended in the air when the power went out.
Some of our friends too up there. So.
There was something about they have the carnival has a trailer with the generators in it, and the batteries weren't getting charged, and, so it shut off. And I think he was out for 20, 25 minutes because they've probably done this before, and they back in a semi truck cables or some kind of connection to get it back up and running. So it was not a Benton County problem.
Okay, good to know. I was just curious.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, it's kind of a big deal if you're stuck somewhere.
No.
And then they had data service down the next morning, unfortunately, on Friday morning for a little while. And I'm not sure exactly what caused that either.
Yeah. Perhaps next opportunity, Tommy could, Jesse could visit and do a recap.
Yeah, useful.
Well, and I know it's on the books. I don't think it's been done yet. Fiber from somewhere around here to the fairgrounds. That might help with data.
Yeah.
I heard the 4-H sales again. They broke another record.
Oh, good.
Which means they went over 1 million.
Recall, I think I saw somebody posted on Facebook. So
during the pandemic, they did amazingly well.
yeah,
It was over 900,000 last year, I think. So get to 1 million.
and you know the community is very generous and supportive, and that's great. One of our friends, one of his chickens got grand champion, and he sold all. I don't know, not that many chickens, but for $1,000. Dang.
Sold the hen for
He
$1,000.
sold like 4 chickens for 4 or 5. It wasn't that many chickens for $1,000. I just, yeah. I mean, good for him. He's using the money to buy a corgi. So good for him.
So the community is very supportive.
Yeah. We have another friend that always raises a steer, and it's good education, but it's also sad at like the last day to say goodbye to the steer that you've raised all year. You know?
You don't think people get attached to their chickens?
Not when a corgi's on the line. They have other chickens, they'll be okay.
I may actually know.
Bought them.
Bought the chickens.
Nice.
Or are you?
I'm done.
Finished?
I didn't really have much, just, yeah, I went to the fair. It was a good time. It was hot. Yeah. My birthday's in exactly 1 month, so you guys have 30 days to start, yeah.
Got even less time to mine.
I know, it's on my calendar. And Joe's birthday's on my calendar. This is the first year I actually got her on my calendar at a time that he's gone. Joe.
Just have to send him a text message.
I will. Okay, good. Go ahead.
Okay. Couple weeks ago, Corvallis Sustainability Fair had their quarterly meeting at the
Forgot about that.
library. Well attended, informational, had snacks. What else? I think we talked about this, the Keller Williams building on 9th, the COG has bought that, or maybe takes a while. As far as I know, that's on track. Don't know a lot about the details or timeline, but CSC is be renting space there. So and that's to replace a very small office COG had also on nights. Pretty close to downtown. Or since summertime, I just haven't heard anything in the last few weeks. There's serious remodel before moving in. There's also a 100-year-old rental house on the back of the property. Sure what the plan is there. The COG was not thrilled about being a landlord. It's currently rented out to students.
I'm sure that there are other nonprofit groups who would be really eager to take over something like a full house building, even, yeah, so.
Let's see.
About the COG.
Sure.
So after the last CWED executive committee meeting, it was confirmed that there is not a new executive director yet.
Right.
Because I think there was some question about. Still ready to vote.
Yeah. Who's on vacation this week?
Yep.
Let's see. I went to a Chamber of Commerce meeting, I guess, last Tuesday. Their legislative group. Yeah. Trying to get things organized and get their legislative
Yeah, I used to sit on that committee, and they just had stopped meeting altogether. So I didn't realize that they had started up again.
This might have been their second meeting.
Okay.
Stephen.
I got uninvited. Yeah.
He was doing his best to recruit. So. But Stephen, who works at Swirl, so I forget his last name, but real active, young and enthusiastic. Yep. So he's got all kinds of things going, and this is one of them.
Okay.
So fair's also already been mentioned. He said, I'm hoping good weather attendance will be at least decent, if not above average. Debbie Douglas was there Wednesday. I think was not there the rest of the fair. She has COVID.
Oh, no.
So that was not good timing. But as far as I can tell, things were running smoothly. I mean, there's a couple paid people and a fair amount of volunteers know what they're doing, just like the auction. A week from Thursday, the 17th, the COG is having a barbecue at the Philomath Park from noon to 2. Briefly go there and then go to the CIP meeting.
What day is that?
Thursday, the 17th. And somewhere in there, Good Sam's having a 75th anniversary celebration. We get on my calendar, so.
I have it.
That's on Saturday, the 26th, and I think I put it on the
Yeah,
calendar.
yeah,
Okay.
it's on the calendar.
And I think I've mentioned before, it'd be nice if we had a coordinated calendar, so on events, at least one of us shows up, one or more. But, last Thursday, new employee quarterly orientation. I was lonely.
You were the only one there? Oh, that's too bad. I didn't realize that Nancy couldn't make it either.
I had to go pick up my kids at that time.
I would have liked to have known. It was only a half hour.
Yeah.
They've changed the format, so it's start at 8, quit at noon. No lunch. You don't get lunch.
Sorry, yeah, I mentioned it to a couple different people.
Yeah, I had also told Mariah.
Didn't filter down. It worked fine. Almost 4 hours they were.
Like duck down, like put on a red wig and pop back up and be like, I can sure want this. No, okay.
If only I would have thought. I would have seen it. Not sure I have a red wig. Pink, I think. I think it went well, and the all-day session was a good idea. You can get most departments, but it's too long. That was the thinking there. And next month, Monroe is going to be busy. On the 9th, celebration for first responders. 29th and 30th, the logging festival, both days, and Saturday.
They're having a barbecue competition, which my husband he doesn't know it, but I'm getting an apron with his face all over it to wear.
And then the chili cook-off is Sunday the 10th. Usual venue in Philomath Rodeo Grounds. Got his office ramped up 5 or 6 teams. His office, so good event.
Maybe the commissioner should chili. I think good chili, I'm just saying.
And
You don't look very enthused.
I like the New Mexico style chili that I grew up with rather than all of these chilies that typically get made. So I just.
Okay.
And September 8th, Friday, September 8th, the AOC District 5 meeting. Eugene.
And I will not be there for that. I'm going to be in New Hampshire for a memorial service for the oldest family member from my husband's side of the family who passed away at 99. So now, yeah, so I will not be chairing that. I would be chairing that meeting. I believe Heather Buck is stepping up to chair it. And there will be leadership transition in both the chair and vice chair for that this role. And I am not sure, we've been talking amongst the commissioners, but if either of you are interested in the leadership role that might be available, it's not, you know, since I've been in that role for the last 3 or 4 years, it's supposed to rotate. And it hasn't because everyone decided it shouldn't during COVID. Yeah, no one wanted it.
September, starting on the 21st, the COG legislative retreat.
AOC.
Klamath Falls.
AOC legislative retreat. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Are you guys both for that?
I am.
Still to be.
I am too. So, because I mean, I'm not on the board of directors, so I'm just trying to figure out what there'd be value attending.
One of the things I can tell you is that there are a lot of commissioners stepping down from their roles. I'm not the only one that's not running again. And people stepping down that are currently in leadership roles. Steve Kramer from Wasco is not running again. David Yamamoto from Tillamook is not running again. And so there are going to be a lot of leadership positions that are up for grabs at the steering committee level. So, you know, if either of you are interested in those roles, it's the right time to, you know, to get engaged. But
we have to get reelected.
Yeah, understood. With Danielle Bethel coming in as the incoming president too, I think no one's really sure how she's going to structure things and whether she's going to change it up the way Derek did or not. So stay tuned. I forgot to mention that I've been on the search committee for the new chamber director, and I have not been able to make it to any of the meetings, but I've been participating in evaluation stuff. And they started interviewing on the 4th, and the interview team has their last interview, or had their last interviews yesterday. So hopefully there will be some candidates that they actually choose to bring in for in-person. They just did the Zoom interviews this week. So they had 5 candidates. I would say the pool was not as strong as y'all had hoped it would be. So it's a little disappointing. I'm hoping that some of these people came through much stronger in person on Zoom than they did on paper. So we'll see.
Along those lines, what's the status of replacing Kate Porsche's?
He has been hired and he starts August 15th or 15th.
Yeah, sometime soon.
12th, yeah.
Was that the person from Michigan?
Yeah.
Yes, so familiar with college towns. He had visited Corvallis once before in the past for a convention or something that OC was doing. So he was somewhat familiar with the area, knew he liked it.
And when's he starting?
August next week.
Okay.
It's
look at my email real quick.
No, that's fine.
Rick shared an email about it with us a while back that he'd gotten, and then I think Paul Bellata also wrote to us directly. So somewhere in buried in the email, it'll be there.
And did Benton County have any input on the search?
Yes. Nancy, were you on the search committee?
So I was invited to participate in the interviews, and it was the same day as our groundbreaking for the crisis center. So I missed the first half of the day. Which I let Paul know, and he said, "Oh, it's fine, just come in the afternoon." Came in the afternoon, and 1 or 2 of their people backed out. The only interview I saw was this gentleman's, so I just gave my 2 cents about him and said, "I'm just speaking for myself on behalf of the county."
I'm glad you spoke, you participated. I participated when Kate was hired, not Kate, when Jerry was hired, actually, Jerry Sorty. So they've been trying to include us in their hiring for economic development office.
I think Paul's really good at giving people turns.
Yeah.
So I hadn't heard much about that, and since we contribute financially, it seems like, I mean, stay.
I can also check with them, obviously give the new person a chance to get acclimated, but we could probably get him on an agenda, maybe just as a meet and greet.
That'd be great.
I had some relevant information there. His name is Christopher Jacobson, and he is on the agenda for the September 5th meeting. We had Jerry Sorte on for the regular economic development update. Christopher Jacobson to be with him and arrange for that.
Good. What would we do without you?
Thank you, Maura.
I also, Shannon Bush also participated in the
Good.
That's what I had. And just the comment about trying to coordinate calendars formally, I guess. Community events, as participation is possible. Some idea who's doing what. There's nothing else. Meeting adjourned.
Meeting's over now, I'll say.